Are you a mom or maybe a dad, could be an educator who's getting really frustrated with the behavior of your child? Perhaps you've been trying things for years and years to try to get them to just listen to you, put on their shoes so you can get out the door on time. Some of you are dealing with child behavior disorders and mental health issues and like loving on your kids so much, but all you hear back is how much they hate you. Or one statement the other day that I read was, I wish you were dead. So you're going to be in all different spots. Some of you are just here to have a little more peace in your home. And some of you have been trying things for 10 years and really truly believe that your child's brain is broken somehow, or there's something wrong with them, or the psychologists have been telling you for years and years that your child has this diagnosis and that diagnosis. And then you come to this group and we're like, hey, there's nothing wrong with your kids. Everything's fine. And that might just piss you off a little bit. And so I want to share my story with you tonight. And sometimes I feel like I'm already like getting emotional. Sometimes I feel like I share my story so much that you don't want to hear it or that you might be bored of it. And then I hear from other people that they just found me on TikTok and they have no idea who I am. And they just saw one of my videos for the very first time. So I want to say that if you've been following me for a long time and you've heard some of this stuff before, stick with me because I'm going to share a little bit deeper than I ever have before tonight. And if you're just joining me, I want you to listen with an open mind and an open heart because I'm here for one purpose only, and that is to breathe life into you and your child or children and your family, and to bring you an option tonight that you've never probably heard before. An option that you could actually live with the same child who maybe even be medicated for years. The same child who has displayed aggressive behavior for years and years, and nobody knows what to do with that child. The same exact child. And I'm going to tell you a story tonight that should inspire you to know in your soul. You might not get it in your mind, and that's okay. But I want you to feel in your soul whether what I'm sharing with you tonight is the truth, or whether for whatever reason under the sun I would ever make anything like this up. Like I can't think of any reason. But for the last several years, Thomas and I have been doing many how-to videos on YouTube, and I would think that the very first time we ever say, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with your child, just parent this way and everything's gonna be okay," that we would have the masses of the parents on board going, "Just show me how." But I get it. It's like, who are we to say that when the doctors have been telling you one thing for ever and ever? And I get that you might just not know us from a hole in the ground. And I also get that it could be really scary for you to share your story. Another conversation that I had just in the recent couple days is that I feel so much guilt. I feel so much shame. I'm embarrassed to share my story. And we're all the same because we're moms and we live our own secret nightmare in our own house with our own children. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Bonnie Leota, and I'm the co-founder of Creating Champions for Life. But I want to take you back to 1994 because back then I was like a disempowered young adult. I was always the child who would have been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. I had some learning disabilities. I had to go to a special class during my lunch breaks when some of my schoolmates were going to the like academic class. I was going to the special needs class because I had my B's and D's. I couldn't figure out how to spell properly. And I always colored outside the lines at school, even though at home I could color perfectly. So anyways, to fast forward, by the time I was a teenager, I knew there was no hope for me. I didn't fit in school. I never got straight A's like my brother. My mom told me quite often that she wished I was more like my brother. School told me that I wasn't smart, so why even bother trying? And so I was one of those 15-year-olds who Just kinda rebelled a little bit, quit school, had a teenage pregnancy, got kicked out of the house at the age of 15, slept underneath, stairs in the apartment building down the street because I had nowhere to go, and my parents had no idea how to parent me, and so I literally raised myself from that point on. I've been living on my own since 17. I've paid rent, I've worked 2 jobs. I always had a really great work ethic because I was an adult by the time I was 11 years old. So, fast forward, I thought that I could work my way up. I could work at a restaurant and work my way up and become a boss or something like that. I always watched maybe too many soap operas, so I thought I'd start in the mailroom and then, like, work my way up to boss, which I did. I became a manager at a very young age, 2021. I was supervising, I was managing, um, but I didn't wanna do that forever, so I answered an ad in the paper that said you didn't need any experience and you didn't need a high school or you didn't need college or anything like that, just come and we'll train you, and I was like, "Yes, that's for me," and so I showed up at the age of 21 at a Kirby dealership, and I learned how to go door knocking, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners, which I had no idea that's what it was, by the way, until I actually got dropped off with the van and I'm knocking doors. So the point of this story was that's where I was introduced to personal development. That's where I was introduced to a book called Think and Grow Rich. And halfway through reading Think and Grow Rich, I was completely inspired because I learned at that point that not one person in history who created the world that we live in today had a college education. Most of them didn't even have a high school education, and so much energy is put on our children today to do good in school when, like, Henry Ford had a grade 8 education. Edison was kicked out of school in grade 3 because his teacher said that he was unteachable. Einstein didn't talk till he was 4 years old. They thought he was mentally handicapped. You've got Helen Keller, who couldn't speak, couldn't hear, couldn't talk. And when, well, she lost all of these senses when she was a toddler. And I remember watching a movie of hers when she's about 2 or 3 years old, and she's like, and nobody would pay attention to her. Her doll's eye was missing or something like that. And so she walked up to the dining room table one day and she takes the cloth and she pulls it off and she's having this like angry meltdown. And the dad says, "She's going, that's it. She's going to a mental hospital." And everybody's mad at her and like punishing her for not knowing how to communicate because she actually attracted Anne Sullivan, who taught her how to communicate, and she became one of the greatest inspirations in history. I'm sharing these stories with you because I want you to start looking at your child as if they are a somebody. I want you to look over at your child right now and see them as somebody special, maybe a leader of the new generation, a leader of the new generation who just doesn't want to be controlled by anybody. Does that ring a bell? If that rings a bell, if you have a child who you tell them what to do and you go you think they don't want me to control them, give me a comment in the comments, give me a like or something like that so I know that I'm talking to the right crowd here, right? They don't want to be controlled by me. I tell them what to do and they just don't listen to me. I say up, they say down. I say black, they say white, right? I say wear pants, they want to wear a dress. You know what I mean? So I'm getting some yeses in the comments. Okay, so I read Think and Grow Rich, and halfway through that book, I'm like, wow, all you got to do is have a goal. You can have a goal and create a plan, and this is what the book said. It said you didn't need any education. You didn't need to be smart. You didn't need to even work hard. You needed to have a goal, create a plan, put it in writing. You had to have a timeline for your goal. Then you needed to put it all make the whole thing out in writing, decide the price you're willing to pay. That's step 5. And then step 6, you were to read that goal every day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I knew what was in this book, I never would have done all these stupid things. I never would have given my baby up for adoption. And I ran over to my dad's house. Now, because I'd never finished high school and I'd never done any of these things, I was a rebellious teenager. You could imagine when I'm like, Dad, I'm going to find a way to empower all the kids of the world before the age of 12. And he goes, yeah, that's nice, dear. And kind of went on with life. And from that moment on, I became addicted to personal development. And so that was 21. That was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And it took me 10 years of going to workshops and seminars and reading books just to believe in myself. But the one thing that I knew was that when I became a mom, when I became a mom, my kids were going to know how loved they were. My kids were gonna know how special they were. They were gonna feel so loved and just know how much they meant to me that they weren't gonna experience terrible twos because I was gonna give them the life that I always wanted. I was gonna make sure to provide for them, to get them nice things. I wanted them to have their own bedrooms. I wanted them to have all the things I never had. If you're with me, give me a comment. Does this sound familiar to you? I'm not going to do the things my mom did. I'm going to parent differently. I'm going to be such a great mom that my kids won't want for anything. And you know what? Over my dead body, will you ever yell at my kids? Over my dead body, will you ever hit one of my children? Because I will be Mama Bear and I'm going to protect them as much as possible. And so this is the dream, isn't it? This is the dream that we all have before we have kids. And then you've got parents that are like, I hope you have a child that's just like you. And so then you get pregnant with the first kid and you buy the parenting book, and it's called Kids Are Worth It by Barbara Coloroso. And she's talking about jellyfish parenting and permissive parenting, how you got to be how you got to be a backbone parent. You gotta bend a little bit. You gotta have some rules. You gotta have some boundaries. You've gotta use timeouts and takeaways, redirection. And I know I'm talking, my oldest son is now 25 years old. So I know that there's some new parenting books that I probably haven't read. But I've watched all the videos, I attend all the webinars still to this day because I'm looking for something, and it's the something I'm gonna share with you here in a few minutes. It's the something that will completely rock your world and change your life if you get this tonight. You're not gonna get it up here, but I'm gonna ask that you get it down here. Just feel me as I talk to you. Because here I am. I love this little baby so, so much. Anything he wants, I'm there for him, rocking him to sleep every night. And then all of a sudden, they turn about 18 months old and they start getting into everything. And they start getting into everything. And what's the first thing that we're taught to do? We're taught, aren't we? If you know what I'm going to say, put it in the comments. Pretty sure you know what I'm going to say. The first thing that we're taught to do is tell them no. No, no, we don't throw the food. No, we got to teach them the meaning of no. They got to know what no means. And so you start saying no. And now I've got this little toddler who's 18 months old, and God, he was cute. He had little Jerry Maguire glasses on, like the little pop bottle glasses. He was so cute. And every time he had a little temper tantrum, he'd grab him, throw him across the room. So here I am thinking I'm doing a good job because I would say no and he would have a temper tantrum. Then I'd put him in a timeout until the timeout, till he was like calm down, and then he could come back. Or if he lied to me, I'd take him into a timeout. Or if he went to go touch a hot burner, no, we don't do that. And I'd move him away and I'd redirect him away from the hot burner. Anything that I could do to get him to behave. Well, he was 9 months old. I got pregnant again. So at 18 months old, I had two. I had an 18-month-old and a newborn baby. And so the same thing. So I'm trying to parent him. I've got this little newborn baby, and 2 years later I get pregnant again. So now I've got like a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and I'm pregnant again. And the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old start to fight. Anybody know what sibling rivalry is? And they start to yell and they touch me, whatever. And I'm trying to run a home-based business because that's all I could do is run a home-based business because I didn't have a high school education. So I'm into personal development. I'm going to workshops. I have no money. I've got these little guys and have no idea what to do besides keep dragging in the timeout. And every time I drag into the timeout, my little guy kept getting angry and angrier. And I'm pregnant with Jenny, and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Baby number 3 coming. These guys won't stop fighting. I am going crazy. I'm reading all the parenting books. I've got Dr. Spock's book. I've got Magic 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Do that again. Do that again, Jacob. Drag you to a timeout. You with me on this? What is it that I'm trying to do with my little toddlers that's driving me so crazy? What is it you're doing with your little ones that's driving you so crazy that's causing them to have even more meltdowns? What do you think it is? Oh my god, exhausting. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine now going back 25 years ago and doing this again, like, honestly, like, it's time to have grandkids now, guys. Okay, so fast forward, I end up yes, I'm trying to control them. I'm trying to just get them to behave. I'm trying to not give in. I got all the power and they have no power. That's the way it's supposed to be. So now I'm dragging two kids into timeouts. And fast forward a couple more years. By the time my oldest was 6, I had a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn baby. And by the time Zachary was 6 years old, my oldest was 12, so I had 4 kids between the ages of 6 to 12. For 6 years, since grade 1, they had told me that Jacob had ADD or ADHD. The names have changed over a period of time. They now call it ADHD. But I was like, "What do you mean he's got this ADD, ADHD? What is that even?" It wasn't popular when I was in school. I was born in 1972, and I don't think it started getting introduced to the schools till 1980s, and so I didn't even have a clue of what it was. It was not something that I grew up with, and I didn't know any better. So here I am going to the school meetings, getting called from the school. He's got this thing, da 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 da. And I refused to medicate for 6 years. Now, I'm not saying that to judge anyone who medicates. I just didn't think he needed it. It was just insane to me. So by the time he was 12 years old, the doctor, the pediatrician, takes a piece of paper and he goes, "This is what all the other kids are seeing in the classroom, and this is what Jacob's seeing." And so he has everything like on a plate, and the knife and everything's on the plate, and there's something out over here in left field, and then he's like, "This is what your son sees. So we're gonna give him some medication to so that he can actually like focus when he's in school. It's gonna help him a lot." And I bought in. So I put him on a drug called Concerta, and he was supposed to take it in the morning, and then it was supposed to exit his system by that evening. It was supposed to be non-addictive. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to help my son. I'm going to give him some medicine. And so he starts taking this medicine, and a couple weeks in, he comes home from school and he's like, "Yeah, I think it's really helping me." I'm like, "Great, this is awesome." So, meanwhile, I've got my youngest one getting calls from the school all the time. He was actually diagnosed also with ADHD in the worst case of oppositional defiant disorder that the school psychologist had ever seen. My 10-year-old daughter, 10-year-old daughter, was being diagnosed with anxiety. She suffered from depression. She cried herself to sleep every single night. And so you would know if you ever came to my house, you'd be like, "Oh my God, she's a parenting coach now." Don't worry, I'm going to come full circle. I'm going to share with you how I got here, the miracle that saved my family and that could save your family too. So this is what I was dealing with. Anyways, about 2 months into this Concerta medication, Jacob goes, "Mom, I need some pills. I'm almost out of pills." He had like about 4 days of pills left. He goes, "Mom, almost out of pills." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll go get you some tomorrow. I'll get you some more pills tomorrow." And he goes, "No, Mom, you don't understand. Mom, I need my pills." And I'm like, "Yeah, Jacob, I'll go get you some tomorrow, I promise." He goes, "No, Mom, you don't understand. I need my pills." And he starts banging his head on the counter and freaking out. And my oldest daughter was there, the one that I gave up for adoption. She was actually with me at the time, and we're looking at each other and we're freaking crying and freaking out because I'm like, "Oh my God, I I don't know what's going on here, but I no more drugs for him." So I just took him off the pills. I didn't ask anybody. I just did it. And so I want you to imagine this. So here I am now. By this time, I'm a single mom with 4 kids who are completely out of control. Sibling rivalry like crazy. One kid on medication, off medication. There were like literally holes in my wall. They would not stop fighting. I would come home. Zachary would be tied up to a chair with duct tape on his mouth. I'm like, I learned later on that they were like sneaking out. I'd go to bed, they'd sneak out of the house. They were taking the little one to sneak out of the house to go smoke pot or whatever they were doing at the park. And I had no freaking clue. It was just, there was what the doctors were telling me wasn't working. I couldn't medicate my kids. I just couldn't do that to them. Um, Zachary's getting kicked out of school, classroom after classroom, got put into a school with a rubber room in the back so they could drag him in there and he could scream in there without disrupting the classroom. No amounts of timeout, no amounts of lecturing, no amounts of loving, no amounts of being nice and kind and joking and doing whatever, no amounts of anything was going to help this family. And so I ended up locking myself in the bathroom. I'd go to these meetings. I was like top 10 in the world in business because I thought it was my job to give my kids a great life. I thought if I provided everything that I never had as a kid and I love them to death, like I said at the beginning, that I could avoid all this, but nothing was working. And then I just started to believe what society was telling me, that just being a parent was really hard and that terrible twos were an actual thing. But not only just terrible twos, horrific threes. They rebel at the age of 5 or 6. They start to crave a little bit more independence, but they can't be independent yet, can they? Because they can't like run the world without you. So what do? You lock yourself in the bathroom and you cry in fetal position as your kids are screaming outside the house, outside of your bedroom. They had taken over my whole house. I couldn't watch TV. They'd be in my office. It was just a nightmare. So if you're living a nightmare and any of this sounds familiar to you, I want you to know I've been there. I've lived this. Right? Watching Super Nanny, and I've had people comment, Super Nanny's the worst advice ever. Well, I tell you what, I watched a video the other day where a gentle parenting expert was saying it's okay to have temper tantrums. So then I did a video for gentle parents saying, well, it's not like it's normal to have temper tantrums. And I did a video saying it's not normal to have temper tantrums. Actually, if the kid's having temper tantrums, there's something going on in their soul. And then I got this other gentle parent go, we don't tell our kids it's normal to have temper tantrums. And I'm like, well, why don't you guys figure out your stuff? So I can imagine it was hard for me parenting back in 2010 and 11. I could imagine in 2024, I've Googled parenting. I've watched the videos on parenting. Just tell your child that they're being oppositional and offer them some sort of negative consequence and they'll straighten out. Okay. Isn't it so confusing? Everybody telling you to do this. No, don't do this. Do that. No, don't do that. Do this thing over here. No, that doesn't work. Well, it might work for this kid, but it's not going to work if you have a strong-willed kid. Well, gentle parenting works for all these kids except for if you have a strong-willed kid. Are you with me on this? So, anyways, I gave up being a mom. I literally gave up. I feel so terrible for my kids because I would walk by my son and I would touch him on the back and he would like, ew, don't touch me. And so I know what it's like to have these kids and you just love them so much and they just hate your guts and you have no idea why, or they're freaking out and breaking things and throwing things and punching holes in the wall and you have no idea why because you've just tried to love them so much their whole lives and here they are, just a basket case trying to figure things out. So that's where I was. So, remember I told you I had a dream since 1994, though, to empower all kids before the age of 12. And I was a personal development speaker. So every time I spoke at the front of the room and I traveled all over North America doing these speeches for entrepreneurs. And my speech is this, and I'm going to say this to you right now, because you probably have some things going on in your soul where your parents did some harm to you completely unknowingly. They loved you. They wanted the best for you. But if there's something inside of your soul going, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I should be better at this. I'm going to tell you right now, you were born absolutely perfect. You have the potential to create, to do anything it is that you would choose to create in this world. You want to write a book, write a book. You want to be a great mom, you can be a great mom. You need the correct information. See, we keep giving you if we keep giving you incorrect parenting information, parenting advice that's crap, and then going, but you got to be gentle and kind. And then we wonder why it works for everybody else, but it's not working for us. But that's not true. It's not working for anybody. It's not working for anybody. And the truth is because a human spirit cannot be controlled. It's a complete lie. It's an illusion. So here I am. I'm saying this speech to all of the crowd. You're born perfect, but conditioned into mediocrity. And I was going home and I was conditioning my kids into mediocrity. And at every speech I said, I'm going to find a way to empower all the kids by the age of 12. That's all I knew. I didn't know how to do this. Here I am, 18 years into my personal development journey, 4 kids who were not personally developed at all. I'm at the end of my rope. I'm praying to God on my bathroom floor for an answer. Like, God, I have this dream. Where are you? What am I supposed to do with these kids? You can't just throw them out with the bathwater. You can't be like, okay, I'm done now. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Bye-bye. So, by the grace of God, I end up on a personal development cruise ship in the Bahamas. It's a whole other story I don't have time for right now, but I end up on this cruise ship and I end up being introduced by a gentleman named Luke to a guy named Thomas Leota. And I had no idea that Thomas ever worked with children. How we connected was, Bonnie, I've been looking all over for you. Bonnie, Tom, Bonnie. By the way, Tom has a radio show. And I was like, I'm a personal development speaker. I'm going to tell people, I'm going to tell all these entrepreneurs how great they are through his radio show. Like, I swear I was born for one purpose, and that is to inspire you. Whether you decide to act on what I'm about to share with you tonight or not is going to be completely up to you. But what I want to do is I want to give you a choice in life. So you're not stuck with this crappy parenting advice, wondering what's wrong with you, because that's a lie. So anyways, I end up on this radio show and he ends up like teaching me a couple things about speaking double negatives. And I never knew I spoke double negatives, and I didn't know where the arrow was. Is it the arrow and the FedEx arrow and the FedEx logo? I didn't know where the FedEx arrow was. So he showed me a couple of things, taught me a couple of things, made some authentic changes for me from the inside out. And I was like, this guy's really smart. So I'm on the phone and I'm like, hey, Tom, I'm going to put together a workshop called the Foundation for Life. Would you like to come to Canada and put this workshop together or do this workshop with me? Now, my head is going, you don't need anybody to come to Canada to do a workshop with you. And my mouth's going, hey, Tom, do you want to come to Canada and do this workshop with me? And he responds, okay. So that was my in to fly him to Canada. And that was the first time that I ever saw him with my kids. And what I saw, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. We had a couple weekends together. We started doing these workshops, and we weren't a couple or anything. He was just really great. And anyways, I'm showing off, right, my super mom powers because I've got this guest in my house and I don't want any explosions. So I'm walking around on eggshells, not wanting my little one to have a 4-hour screaming fit because it's so embarrassing. And I'm like, Zach, it's almost time for bed. And I know you probably recognize this through like gentle parenting or whatever, because like this is kind of what we're taught. That's what I knew. Zach, it's almost time to bed for bed. I'm giving a forewarning that bedtime's coming soon, right? And right away, Zach goes to go into a meltdown, and I'm like freaking out. And Tom comes around the corner and he does two things. Now, the first thing you might recognize, the second thing, nobody does this except for Creating Champions for Life. The first thing was he goes, Zach, would you like to go to bed now with a story? Because haven't we all been taught, like, if you want to be a good mom, you got to read all your kids a bedtime story and spend some love time with them at bedtime. And so my bedtime routine used to be like an hour every night because I was like doing my thing, tucking the kids in. He comes around the corner and goes, would you like a story? Would you like a story? Go to bed by yourself. Zach, for the first time in his life, got an opportunity to actually think for himself. Now he's the youngest of 4. He wants to be like the older ones. Well, wouldn't you? Like, I get it. He wants to be like the older ones, stay awake like the older ones. Anyways, he goes, in 10 minutes from now, all by myself. And I'm like, okay, he's playing you, right? Like, I didn't say anything, but I was like, oh God, okay, like 10 minutes from now, then we'll have the meltdown, right? But see, what Tom did, he goes, okay, Zach, do you know what 10 minutes looks like on the clock? And Zach goes, no. Then such guilt when I didn't. I know, me too. So guilty when I couldn't tuck my kids into bed at night and read them a story, and he chose no story. Go figure. So anyways, Tom takes him over to the clock and he goes, this is what 10 minutes looks like on the clock. Do you think you could remember this? So what he did was he gave 100% responsibility of going to bed over to Zach, where every night I thought it was my job to tell him what it was bedtime, tell him to brush his teeth, tell him like, let's go. We got to go to bed, take him to bed, read the story, tuck him in at night. And every night was a freaking nightmare. 3-4 hour screaming fits every night. Terrible. Since the day he was born, literally. But Tom does this whole thing, hands over the responsibility to Zach, shows Zach 10 minutes looks like on the clock. 10 minutes later, Zach comes upstairs, goes, I love you. Good night. Big smile on his face, goes to bed, and I don't see him again till morning. And I'm like, what? Now you might think I kind of thought that was fluke, don't you? It's like, oh, well, yeah, like you've got this stranger in the house, like he's going to be good for the stranger. So this is what I thought too, is like blew it off. But the next time Tom comes to town, what I noticed was the kids got karaoke machines. All the kids have their own Nintendo DS. They all have cell phones. They have TVs on every floor. They've got computer. They've got like everything under the sun that you could ever want. An Xbox in the basement. But every time Tom was around, they'd be ordering over Tom. Tom, can I play Angry Birds on your phone? And so what I learned was, and I didn't even recognize this for like weeks. Like Tom would come to Canada, we'd do a workshop, and then he'd take off and he'd come back a couple weeks later and he'd be with the kids again. So, anyways, we're in the Lexus one day and the kids are like, "Hey Tom, can I play Angry Birds on your phone?" And Tom goes, "Oh, I'd love you to play Angry Birds on my phone. That's called a goal." Now, goal to me, I'd been in personal development already for 18 years. So I was like, goal. I should have triggered into this, but I didn't even trigger into it. He's like, that's called a goal. What's one thing you could do to put a big smile on your mom's face? And the kids just like went to town, started cleaning up all the mess in the back seat and everything else. And they're wiping stuff down with the Armor All and they're piling the papers and whatever. So I get home like maybe 5-10 minutes later and I get into the house and the kids aren't coming in the house. I'm like, what's going on? So I go back outside and I go, guys, what's going on? Well, we can't come in yet. I go, why not? Well, we're not done cleaning yet. Could you imagine this? ODD, depression, anxiety, ADD, and they're busy cleaning and they can't come in because they're not done cleaning yet. Give me a comment if this is like, wow. If you could come home with some groceries and your kids are like not coming in because they're too busy cleaning your car, would that be like a good thing? Would you be happy about that? If your ODD son went to bed all by himself with a big smile on his face and said like, I love you, and you never saw him again till morning, you didn't have to do nothing. Would that like make you go, holy cow, what's going on here? So yeah, I get a wow. I've got like a face melting down. That would be a miracle. It would be awesome. Yeah, it was like awesome. So I'm starting to see some things like, oh, Tom, where'd you learn to talk to kids like this? Oh, oh, hey guys, what should we be doing? So the next time they're supposed to be doing chores, he's like, hey guys, what should we be doing right now? And they would just like go into action. They like wanted to show off their skills. Let me show you what we should be doing. Hey, where's the best place for your coat? Can you show me what that looks like? And they put their coat away. I was like, this is blowing my mind. So, anyways, I start researching online. What other parenting philosophy focuses on goals? What other parenting is proactive versus reactive? What other parenting focuses on child power, child control, self-control versus parent control? And after 6 months, I had about 150 sticky notes all over my computer. I had done my due diligence. I couldn't find anything. I could not find, and I still cannot find. It's been like 13 years now. I cannot find anything out there teaching parents to be proactive, to empower their kids with goals, to show their children the good, the bad, the ugly. Hey, you know what? You can have temper tantrums. This is what you're choosing. No, the kid has temper tantrums. You're being taught there's something wrong with them. You're being taught that they've got some sort of sensory processing disorder. You're being taught that they're conduct disorder. Some of our clients were being taught that their child never, ever would sit still. They couldn't do it. You're literally being taught that your kids have holes in their brain. And I'm sorry, like if you're in this group, you're probably a little bit spiritual. Every single parent who works with us says, I prayed to God for an answer and I saw your video. And I prayed to God for an answer, and he brought me on a cruise ship, and he introduced me to Thomas Leota. And I'm like, where did you learn to talk to kids like this? He goes, Bonnie, I've been working with kids my whole life. I'm like, yeah, so is my stepmom. She's been working with kids my whole life too, but I've never seen anybody talk to kids the way you talk to kids. And so I have all these proactive questions all over my computer. I was able to go to the room, go, Tom, what did you say to the kids to get them to do their chores? What should we be doing? And I'd go out to the other room. I'd be like, hey guys, what should we be doing? And they'd look at me like deer in the headlights. Like they could get away with it, right, with me, but they couldn't with Tom. So I go back in the other room and I'm like, Tom, they just said, I don't know. Now what do I say? And he always had an answer. He's like, I know you don't know, but if you had to guess, what would the answer be? And they guess our chores, and they'd get up and they'd do their chores. So what I noticed after 6 months of parenting Tom's way, asking questions, hey, Jacob, you know what? Go to school, don't go to school. I'm completely unattached. I already have my life. This is actually your life. But did I owe him a cell phone? Did I owe them cable TV? Did I owe them internet? Did I owe them an Xbox? Did I owe them ice cream after dinner? Are these things that I owed my children that I had to just curl up in fetal position in my bathroom while they took over my house? So I phoned Tom and I'm like, Tom, Jacob will not go to school. He was 13 and he hadn't gone to school for probably the last part of grade 7 and he's in grade 8. He will not get up and go to school. I'm like, he won't go to school. What do I do? He goes, well, does he have a cell phone? I'm like, yeah. He goes, who pays for it? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I make this proactive plan, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I go downstairs. I'm like, Jacob, you know what? I'm totally going to release myself from whether you go to school or not go to school. And I go, but I tell you what, first day moving forward, as of right now, the first day you don't go to school, I'm not going to say a word to you, but you're going to be saying, hey, mom, I want you to take my phone for the day. Now, notice I'm not going, you didn't go to school. I'm taking the phone because that would cause World War III. I'm giving him a proactive plan. There's a difference. First day, I take your phone for a day. Second day, you choose not to go to school. You're saying, hey, mom, I would like you to phone Telus and shut my phone off for 2 weeks. And the third day that you choose not to go to school, Jacob, you're saying, mom, I don't want you to pay for my cell phone ever again. I'm fine either way. I love you. No matter what you choose, I'm going to leave it to you. And I left and I went upstairs. And tell me in the comments, what do you think happened after that? Do you think he went to school? Do you think he kept playing around, sleeping in, playing video games all day long, not listening? I really want some comments here. So I'm not going to give you the answer until you put in the comments what you think actually happened here. So anyways, I start parenting Tom's way. He went to school. Thank you, Melissa. He chose to go to school. You all are so smart. Kelly, he chose to go. He went to school. He went to school every single day until he graduated from high school. You know what? He's 25 years old. He's been a manager at Costco since the age of 21. My kid with ADHD who needed medication to get through school has been managing Costco for 4 years already. Okay. He's a kid. So I'm thinking he didn't really believe you at first, but eventually he went to school. Oh no, he went to school just like that. He believed me because I had already been working with Tom for a little bit. And so they had already seen some changes. So what happened was I ended up with all these sticky notes. I start offering choices, asking questions, making proactive plans, releasing control off my children. And what happened is they started to actually make plans together. They started making me breakfast in bed. They started cleaning up and like have the whole kitchen cleaned up and everything before I even got out of bed because they wanted to earn sleepovers. These kids wanted to earn goals. We're often taught like offer a reward. I thought that at first when I first started creating Champions for Life, I put up my reward chart and they went around and did a bunch of stuff and came and demanded $20. I wasn't doing it right. Okay. So you're going to hear this tonight. You're going to hear some of our videos and you're going to go, this doesn't work. Well, it's like because we're not doing it right because we have 25, 30, 35, 50 years of conditioning already in the opposite direction, right? So you can't come on one video and go, I got this and go create Champions for Life. It's not going to work that way, but I'm telling you what's possible. So after 6 months, my whole house began to become more in order. They were getting along. We were having more confidence, a new zest for life. They were happier. Everything that we would ever dream of as parents was starting to take form in my house. And because I couldn't find anything that at all looked like creating Champions for Life out in the world, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I was making $20,000 a month. I lived in a big 7-bedroom house, drove a platinum Lexus. I didn't want for anything. I used to go shopping every week at the West Edmonton Mall, and I'd go to these expensive stores. I was buying $500 pairs of jeans. I had it made. I was in my 30s. I thought like, this is great. I'm successful, And here I am. I'm not passionate about my business anymore. My dream had always been to find a way to empower kids. And so I literally prayed about it. I ran my big jacuzzi tub and I recited positive words, love, peace, joy, happiness, prosperity, love, peace, joy, happiness for like 20 minutes. And I said, God, what do you want me to do? And like obviously he didn't come down from heaven and scream in my face, but I got a really clear picture in my mind, and I heard, "Give everything you got to creating champions for life." And I had no idea what that was gonna look like because I thought that all I had to do was tell parents, "Hey, there's this other way and we can save our kids," and everybody would, like, jump on the bandwagon, but it didn't happen like that. I didn't know how to write a book. Um, I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't know how to do a Facebook Live. I didn't know how to do a YouTube channel. I didn't know how to write freaking email campaigns. I mean, I might not be very good at some of these things. Like, you might have opted in on my website and have typos in your emails and be like, "Who are these people?" Because that's not what our goal is. We do our best to do these things right. We don't know how to market our business. We might have had a couple of you go, "Ooh, they're trying to sell me something." I don't know. I don't know where your head's at. I don't know how to help you best, but I do know that I woke up this morning in tears because I can just see every mom in the whole world working with these shitty parenting tools, wondering what they're doing wrong. And I'm talking to you. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing everything right. You're doing everything that you're being taught to do. It's just that what we're being taught to do isn't working. It doesn't work. God, there's nothing even wrong with your kids, but your kids are hating on you because you're trying to control them, and you're trying to control them because you want what's best for them. I get it. It's like a freaking cycle that's taking us all off the edge of a cliff. We're dying. I know where I was back in 2010, and it's even worse today. You're even worse off today. There's more confusion today than ever before when it comes to parenting. And we're not talking about the hardest job in the world. We're talking about the most imperative job in the world. You have the most imperative, important, meaningful job in the world. It's called being a mother. But see, we're not spiders. We're not bunnies. We're not born with instinct. So I want you to imagine this, okay? I want you to imagine all the bunnies of the world. They Bunnies have offspring. They teach their offspring how to hunt. Within a few months, they're off living their life, hunting. They have offspring, and the cycle continues. Well, imagine Dr. Bunny stands up and Dr. Bunny says, "Whoa, moms, I want you to stop teaching life skills to the little baby bunnies because you know what? They need attention. You need to lavish them with attention. You need to love on them. You need to give them everything they got. You need to control their behavior with timeouts, and when they do something you don't like, you come in and you take their favorite thing away. And then you lecture them why you're taking their favorite thing away, but don't teach them anything. Don't be duplicating yourself because they don't have the capability yet. They have underdeveloped brains and they can't figure things out on their own. So they need you to be their emotional control. They need you to do everything for them. If you don't do everything for them, if you don't cook for them, if you don't drive them to school, do their laundry, do all these things, well, you're a bad mom. Now you're a bunny and you have all these grown-up baby bunnies in your cave and you're like, "Done." You want to kick them out. Now you kick them out. "Hey, you guys, you're old enough now. You're 18. Get out. Go take care of yourself." What would happen to all the bunnies? Spoiled bunnies. Yeah, we spoiled the bunnies. Spoiled bunnies. What would happen to the bunnies? Guys, moms, dads, what would happen to the bunnies? Dead. They would die. The bunnies would die. "Mom, you did all my hunting for me." They'd be lost. They would be lost. Do you know that in 2018 I wrote a book called Raising Healthy, Happy, Cooperative Kids, and at that time suicide was the number one cause of death for our teenagers? And today in 2024, it's the number 2 cause of death for our teenagers. Do you wanna know what the number 1 cause of death for our teenagers is? What's the number 1 cause of death for our teenagers today? Do you know? They'd be lost. They would run amok. Yes, they would run amok. What's the number one cause of death for teenagers today? Drugs. Oh my God. I'm just like having an aha moment as I'm sitting here because we've got millions of toddlers between the age of 2 to 4 being medicated for terrible twos. And all these little beings want to do is they want to be heard. They want you to see them. They want to be like you. And we keep telling them no and redirecting them when all we have to do is offer them some choices. Go, hey, you want to wear this shirt, this one, this one, this one, this one? Yeah, I want to wear that one. Yay. Because you know what? They have thoughts and feelings and ideas of their own, and they want to be heard and they want you to see their greatness. But we're not seeing their greatness because we are only as good as what we've been taught. And we had a doctor come along in 1946 who said, stop teaching them life skills and start controlling them with timeouts, redirection, and takeaways. Now we call it balanced parenting, attention parenting, gentle parenting. We've got every name under the sun for parenting, but it's all authoritative parenting. You set the rules, you set the boundaries, and if you're not consistent enough, well, that's why your kids are acting out. Lies. They're all lies. So I woke up this morning picturing all of you living in your house, not wanting to get out of bed because another day of chaotic life with your kids. And all I could think of is like, what can I do better? How can I serve you better in this group? How can I serve you better? How can I get you to see that you have all the power to help your children, to save their lives, to bond your relationships, to fix your marriage, to save your family? And all you need is the correct knowledge. And sometimes I speak a little passionate about this because I almost lost my kids. I almost lost my kids to the point where they weren't ever going to talk to me again. And I see that for you. And it's terrible. And all you need is the right community and the right knowledge and the right pathway and the right parenting tools, and we want to help you. We want to help you step into your leadership role and stop being coached and trained to be martyrs and managers of your children when they are just wanting you to see their greatness. So, we took off on this journey. I phoned Tom at the end of 2011. I said, God just told me to give everything we got to creating champions for life. And the bank took my house and the tow truck took my Lexus because I was making $20,000 a month. And I decided to give everything to creating champions for life. So I went bankrupt to do it because this is a message I'm willing to die for. And if you're a parenting coach or a therapist or a psychologist who's prescribing medication to kids and you're watching this video, I dare you, put 10 kids, put 10 of the worst kids you can find in a room with us and with you, and I promise you, within 5 to 10 minutes, they'll be standing at attention stance saying, look at what I can do. I challenge anybody, bring us the kids. Give us a shot. Learn all you can about creating champions for life, because here's the thing. Right now, you don't have a choice. Every single parenting that you go out there to look up besides here is authoritative parenting. And everything is based on controlling your child. And the remedy for this is therapy and medication. That's it. You haven't had a choice until now. And I'm okay. Like, if this is what you choose after you learn about creating champions for life and you learn about guiding behavior and you learn to make proactive plans and you learn to ask questions versus dictating and you learn to listen to your children's goals and you learn that your role is to prepare them for life and not to do everything for them, and you decide to go back, well, I'm going to love you anyways. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to say I'm better than you. I'm no better than you. I'm just a mom who followed the path you're following and almost lost my kids. And I almost lost one of my kids to the streets, to drug addiction, because we're medicating them when they're little. We're medicating them to get through school. And then what? We take them off medication as teenagers. Then what do you think they're going to do? God, I'm not yelling at you. I'm sorry. I'm not yelling at you. It just doesn't make any sense. We medicate them as kids to get them through school and then go, "Oh, we're gonna take you off medication." Have you ever tried to come off of a drug? Do you know what drug, like, withdrawal is like? Do you know that the kids are taking their Adderall to school and selling them to their classmates? And the number one cause of death today is fentanyl because they're self-medicating, because they feel unworthy, because they have no life purpose. You see, the school gun shooters take guns to schools and they kill their classmates and then themselves because they have no purpose. Dylan Klebold had a notebook, and the notebook was full of hate messages, and his mom had no idea. And all she could say is, "But I loved him so much and I was so proud of him, and I just don't understand how this could happen." And he's got all these notebooks talking hate messages to himself. And he writes down one day, he goes, "Dylan Klebold," and he goes, "Fuck that." And he goes, "Me." And it's all right there and it's so crystal clear. And I don't know why God chose me to do this mission. I think sometimes, like, it's too much responsibility to have this, because our kids are dying and our families are dying, and I can see it, and it's a very lonely place to be here. And the only reason I can say that he chose me is because I will never quit. I will never quit on you. You can ridicule, you can tell me that I'm not humble enough. You can not believe me. You can accuse me of whatever, and I will not quit on you, and I will not quit on your children. And someday the whole world will see that guiding behavior is way more effective and empowering than trying to control your children, which is a complete lie, could ever be. And so we have this group, and you've joined this group, and you might choose to leave the group after today. I don't know. I don't know what's going through your mind. But I can promise you this. I can promise that your kids, there's nothing wrong with them. I can promise you we can take the same kid, change the environment to a proactive environment where you release control and you give the control to your child. It's going to seem counterintuitive, and you will have a healthy, happy, cooperative kid. And it's never too late to help your kids. I know I put in the title "Fix the Kids" because that's what people are looking for on Google. We don't say "fix the kids." We're going to fix the environment. We're going to change the cause. We're going to change the effect. We are the leaders. We are the older ones. We are the ones with experience. Our children are counting on us to get this. That's where the anger comes in. The anger, the throwing things, the breaking things, the "I hate you." They're angry because they need you to get this. And if things were kind of okay, like they were with me in the 70s, things were kind of okay back then. So nothing's going to change. And there wasn't a Thomas Leota who worked with thousands of these kids who guided their behavior until now. And so, what a beautiful time to be alive. I don't believe we're in end times. I think we're in the beginning of something great. I think that your kids are acting up to bring you here. I think that there's no chance or luck to bring you here today. I think you're here on purpose. I think you were guided here. I think that it's a blessing that you are here. So, if you get this, I wanna spend some time with you. I'm open to spend some time with you. Just put a comment under the video going, "I wanna spend some time with you," and I'll get a hold of you and spend some time with me. I'm not gonna make you do something you don't want to do, but I will guide you to the way to help your family. Now, what we're gonna do in this group moving forward, I talked to a bunch of our students earlier. They all have their own unique stories. Some of their kids were medicated, some weren't. Some were at the age of 6 already diagnosed with conduct disorder, which is way off the charts, aggressive behavior. Some of the kids were threatening suicide. Some of the moms were just, I don't know, just exactly like you, anyways. So moving forward, every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, you're going to hear another mom story in this group, because we can't teach you how. We can't teach you how to do this in a 30-minute video on a Tuesday night, but we can certainly speak to your soul. We can certainly bring you some hope. We can certainly guide you to the answers. We have the answers. So, anyways, my invitation to you is to spend some time with me. Put underneath the video, I want to spend some time with you. Send me a message if you want to, but I'm just saying, put underneath the video and I'll be able to find you. Okay. The story is now that not only did all four of my children embrace their own uniqueness, step into their champion selves, not only did my parenting dream absolutely come true, I have the most close, connected, loving relationships with my kids. Thomas and I have invested 13 years of paying one hell of a price to be here for you. We've written 2 books. We have clients all over the world in different continents because we're the only hope for families who refuse to medicate or label their children. And so, yeah, we got Australia and Switzerland and the United Kingdom and the United States and Canada and Thailand or Hong Kong. Anyways, we've got countries all over the world learning to speak kid. And I really believe that your kid is a blessing, a huge blessing, not only to you, but for the evolution of humanity. For the next generation, we have an opportunity to save the kids of the next generation, and we have an opportunity to save our grandkids generation so that we can live in a world full of peace and joy and happiness and harmony the way God intended. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you, hearing your story, and helping you get to the other side, the light side, the bright side, the loving side of parenting. And yes, it does exist.